Welcome to Relish Books. Today is my review of Daphne du Maurier's The House on the Strand. So it's been a little minute since my last video. I got a little hung up on this one for a few days, but I pushed through and here we are. So first of all, just whether I liked it or not, it wasn't my favorite. I feel like though that I wasn't super disappointed because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have super high expectations because even though I was really excited to read more of Daphne du Maurier's books because I'm a huge Rebecca fan, I felt like, even though she has a ton of other books, I felt like no matter what, Rebecca is always going to be separate. It's always going to be its own thing, and I don't think anything else is going to compare to it or feel like a similar experience or be better than it for what it is. So I was a little disappointed, but not super disappointed. The writing is really good still. Not on the level of Rebecca, but you definitely get that crystalline quality that Daphne du Maurier has. Her descriptions, her dialogue, every line just feels like it falls into place perfectly. She's really, really good. But I did not care for it for a variety of reasons. I think she achieved what she was trying to. I don't think it's like a failure of a novel in any way for what she was trying to do. She is not trying to write happy books. She's not trying to write books about really good moral people. She's just trying to write interesting, intriguing stories, I believe. So in that sense, she achieved what she wanted to, I think. But even from that standpoint, it's nowhere near on the level of Rebecca. And something I'm not going to spend the whole time comparing it to Rebecca, I promise. But something that's interesting is that you do get some of the same themes and some of the same feelings, like this isolation. Rebecca is you feel it's like an otherworldly feeling. Like you know what time period it's in, you know what part of the world it's in, and yet it's so set apart in its own little place. But it's not lonely. It's like interesting and engaging. This one, again, has that isolated, cut off from the world feeling, but it feels really lonely. You feel alone. The book feels empty. And I think part of that is purposeful. I think the protagonist is empty in a sense. You know, with Rebecca, she's going through turmoil, she's unhappy, but she is so engaged. The protagonist is so engaged with the world around her, and she has an object in her world to love and kind of pursue, even, through difficulty. And this book, so The House on the Strand, is about a man who is essentially time traveling, but time traveling not that he's actually traveling in time, but his scientific professor friend has created a drug that affects your brain so that you can, when you take it, you see your surroundings as they were like 6 centuries ago. So he's sort of time traveling, sort of not, but he gets involved with these characters from the past. Something that I think is brilliant about the book is the feeling that he genuinely becomes interested and invested in these characters from the past, even though he actually has no involvement with them. The way that the drug works, he's not actually there in the past, so he's essentially a ghost. So all these characters that he's seeing and seeing their stories unfold and the drama of their lives, he's completely an observer. He is a ghost. He can't touch them or talk to them. They can't see him. And yet you feel the draw with him of these people. You can kind of understand how he feels apart from the addictive quality of the drug, which you never fully know like how much that is. You feel with him how he wants to go and experience this, especially since he is quite unhappy in his own time period. So you feel that for sure. But I think it's a interesting plot, and it's engaging in a way. Once I like sat down and really pushed through and read it, it was gripping. But my biggest problem, I think, with this book, in comparison to Rebecca, and also just as a book, is that I really don't like the main character. And I'm not saying you're supposed to like him. I'm not saying that's a flaw with the writing. I'm just saying that makes it harder for me when I'm like, I don't like this guy. I'm really honestly rooting against him for most of the book. And I don't know how much you're supposed to do that, how much you're supposed to sympathize with him. I don't think he's supposed to be like held up as a good person. But it's just hard when there's a book where you don't actually like any of the characters. And I didn't. I thought Roger Kilmer's character was interesting and really clever, the way that she showed his development just in these snatches of a little bit of observation from various points in his life, 6 centuries ago. So he was probably the most interesting character to me. But again, he's really, he's sort of a ghost in the story. He's not really there. I mean, there is this idea that's kind of never fully explored, which again, the book is supposed to be intriguing and interesting, and things aren't fully explained, which I also appreciate. You don't really know what's fully going on. And there's this kind of idea that Roger Kilmarth is an alter ego of the main character. I think he's supposed to... There's kind of this question like, is the drug just causing hallucinations and none of this is real, or is he actually traveling in time in his brain? And I really think it's both. So, but it's confusing because the whole time you kind of accept, okay, this is a real thing. And then at the end you're kind of like, was it real? I mean, I think it was. But yeah, there's this idea that possibly he's just kind of an alternate version of the main character. And I think even though he is real, I think he is still supposed to kind of be that way. So his character is interesting in that way. But again, it's not enough of a person to be like, okay, I'm going to read the book for that. Because the main characters that we have, I think his name is Robert Young. Is it Robert Young? I think so. Or Richard, maybe. Richard Young? He doesn't get his name used very often. The main character. He's just not a cool guy. You're just frustrated and annoyed with him and angry at him a lot of the book. His wife is not a pleasant person. You don't like her, but his treatment of her really just makes you root against him. At least it did for me. He really is, he has a difficult marriage, and it's both their fault for sure. But then, because he's using this drug, and he's using it like as an escape from his life as well, and just more and more he pushes away his real life for this dream life, and just treats everyone around him really badly as a consequence. And it just kind of grows and grows. And there's interesting points in that, but it's definitely not a pleasant read, really, in any way. It's interesting, but not... Yeah, it's intriguing, and I definitely can see, like, people liking it for that. It just wasn't my thing. I don't need the main character to be a good person. I definitely don't, because they can be interesting and thought-provoking, but I would like to have somebody to root for, somebody to care about, and I didn't really have anybody. So that's what made it, getting through the book, difficult. And again, the sense of isolation and loneliness in the present time and in the past just was not was not fun. There are some kind of shocking plot twists, not on the level, again, of Rebecca, but still some pretty good plot twists. So, again, that's interesting, keeps you gripped there towards the end. Yeah, so those are kind of my thoughts on this one. I definitely, though, I really felt, something that I felt reading it was it felt so much more like an Agatha Christie novel. It was so, the writing's excellent, but it's kind of like an excellent example of a stereotype of that time period. You look at Agatha Christie's books, particularly in the way that the people are described, is very, very similar. And the way that the British versus American characters are described, the way they interact, very similar to a lot of books like from that time period. It's such a snapshot of the stereotype of the time, the way their marriage works, the way they live, the friends they have, just the way that they are living their lives. It's very much that time period, that kind of gilded but unhappy kind of stage that you see portrayed a lot. And it's not very pleasant. Like, it's interesting, but it's not very pleasant. And again, just the writing and the characters really reminded me, it felt like a slightly more sophisticated Agatha Christie book. And I really like Agatha Christie, so I'm not like insulting it. I think the difference is Agatha Christie is very, very plot driven. Like, she has some good characters, but it's all about the plot. It's all about the mystery. It's all about unraveling that, and that's what it's about. Her characters are kind of by the way. And I feel like Daphne du Maurier is kind of the other way around. She's more character driven. But other than that, it pretty much, if there had been a little more mystery, if there had been maybe a couple more murders, really could have been an Agatha Christie novel. So, which I feel like is, again, I like Agatha Christie, but it's a level below what I would have expected from a Daphne du Maurier book. All that being said, though, the writing is great, and I am still just as excited to read more of her books. I really want to read Jamaica Inn and Frenchman's Creek and, a few others. I know The Glass Blowers was one of her last novels, I think. I'm not sure if the list I was looking at was chronological, so I'm not positive, but some of the names really stuck out to me. I'd be interested in reading some of her short stories as well. I think Kiss Me Again, Stranger is a great title for a short story collection, so definitely want to read more of her work. This didn't deter me at all from her style, even though, I definitely didn't love it. So please let me know if you have favorites of hers apart from Rebecca, or, even if you don't like Rebecca, you don't have to love that book. I don't think that kind of gothic style is for everybody. I really like it. Didn't care for this one. As a side note, I mentioned in one of my last videos that I was going to be reading this book, An Elephant in the Garden by Michael Morpurgo. Not sure how you pronounce his name. It's just like kind of a children's book set in World War II. It says it's loosely based on a true story. I would not say that. I would say it is loosely based on a true event. And then the story is completely made up around an event that happened. But it was all right. I felt like the story was interesting. The writing was very, for like a children's book, it was very middle of the road. It was maybe a little better than mediocre. At times it was good. Most of the way it was pretty mediocre, the writing, but the story was interesting. I read it like in a morning. It was kind of fun. Nothing really wrong with it. Like as far as, children could definitely read it. Not amazing, but a fun concept. So just threw that one in there for free. Anyway, those are my thoughts for today. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you again next time. Bye.